What's going on with this? So Nancy, is that going to be? What's your information you got that? But the ODC is going to be placed in the whole world. There's some kind of a theme. Yeah, it's gotta be good. Oh, there you go. You know, I've been through all this.
Test, test, test.
You. So welcome to the Ellensburg City Council meeting of October 2nd. This is our regular meeting. Since we have a group of American Legion members here, I have invited one of them to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. You could come to the microphone.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Elliot.
Here.
Goodlow. Here. Lilquist.
Here.
David Miller.
Here.
Monica Miller. Here. Wynn.
Need to excuse the absence
Oh,
for
great.
Councilmember Beauchamp. So moved. Second.
Motion and second to excuse Councilmember Beauchamp. All in favor?
Aye.
To vote aye, opposed. Motion carries. Before we start in on our agenda, it was brought to my attention last week that at least one candidate for local public office has experienced violence and harassment at their home. Together with recent revelations about harassment of public employees in our community, I feel the need to state the obvious. Such behavior is unacceptable and we denounce it in the strongest possible terms. Our community depends on both the employees who keep the lights on, the streets drivable, the parks open. That's the real work of government, as well as the people who step up to run for elected positions. If anyone is hard of hearing, there is assistive devices, but I will move okay. Candidates spend their own time, energy, and money to first campaign and then serve as elected decision makers, often with little compensation and frequently facing criticism. Democracy works best when we have choices of candidates with different views to choose from. Any attempt to intimidate or discourage any citizen from running for office is an act against democracy itself. And I should not have to say this. If you believe a public employee is misbehaving, report that to their employer. If you don't like a candidate for office, voice your opinion about the candidate's qualifications or positions in the proper forums. Express yourself at the ballot box. Do not vandalize their homes or destroy campaign signs, which, by the way, is a misdemeanor under state law. Ellensburg prides itself on being a safe and welcoming community. The incidents that have been reported undermine all that we are working for. And I just want to add a letter from the Kittitas County Public Utility District expressing their appreciation for David Miller's call to stand in solidarity on behalf of their employees. So I'll pass that letter along, but okay, we can get back to the meeting. We have two proclamations tonight. One is Public Natural Gas Power Week that will be posted on our social media, and also the Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month proclamations. This was read in English last month, and Councilmember Monica Miller requested that we also read the Spanish version. I got kind of hung up on managing the time in the meeting and limited us to reading two proclamations, but I was in error. We should have acknowledged the Spanish version as well. So Monica Castleman has been kind enough to return to read both proclamations. Thank you, Monica.
Hello, my name is Monica Castellan. I'm a nonprofit consultant and I will be reading the proclamations today. In Spanish first. La proclamación para el mes de la herencia hispana de 2023. Personas latinas, impulsoras de la prosperidad, el poder y el progreso en Estados Unidos. Por cuanto, el Consejo de la Ciudad de Ellensburg se compromete a crear una comunidad de pertenencia que mejore la calidad de vida de todas las personas a las que servimos. Por cuanto, en el mes de la herencia hispana se celebran las historias de origen hispano y latino, las culturas y las contribuciones de las personas cuyos antepasadas eran indígenas de América del Norte y de España, México, el Caribe, América Central y América del Sur. Por cuanto, lo que comenzó en 1968 como la Semana de la Herencia Hispana durante el gobierno del presidente Lyndon Johnson y que el presidente Ronald Reagan amplió para que abarquen un periodo de 30 días a partir del mes de 15 de septiembre de cada año. Estados Unidos celebra todos los años el mes de la herencia hispana. Por cuanto, la finalidad del mes de la herencia hispana es crear conciencia sobre las contribuciones de las personas de origen latino e hispano a la sociedad estadounidense y rendir reconocimiento a los líderes de derechos civiles, organizadores de la comunidad, políticos, maestros, periodistas, socorristas, artistas, profesionales sanitarios, deportistas, inventores y profesionales de entretenimiento de origen latino e hispano. Por cuanto nuestra comunidad hispana y latina representa más del 10% de la población de Ellensburg y aporta un patrimonio cultural diverso que enriquece el crecimiento político, económico y social de nuestra comunidad. Por cuanto el Consejo de la Ciudad invita a todos los miembros de nuestra comunidad a reconocer y celebrar los logros y las contribuciones de estas personas estadounidenses de origen hispano y latino, y a celebrar esta rica cultura con eventos, oportunidades educativas, clases sobre el idioma y comidas tradicionales de origen hispano y latino. Por lo tanto, por medio de la presente, el Consejo de la Ciudad de Ellensburg proclama que el periodo de 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre de 2023 será el mes de la herencia hispana, firmado el 18 de septiembre de 2023. Now we read them in Spanish. The proclamations for the Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month 2023. Latinos, driving prosperity, power, and progress in America. Whereas the Ellensburg City Council is committed to creating a community of belonging that improves the quality of life for all persons we serve. And whereas Hispanic Heritage Month celebrates the Hispanic and Latinx histories, cultures, and contributions of those whose ancestors were indigenous to North America, as well as Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. And whereas what began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson and expanded by President Ronald Reagan to cover a 30-day period starting September 15 of each year, the United States annually observes Latinx and Hispanic Heritage Month. And whereas the purpose of Hispanic Heritage Month is to create awareness of the contributions of people of Latinx and Hispanic people's heritage to American society, and recognize the civil rights leaders, community organizers, politicians, teachers, journalists, first responders, artists, healthcare professionals, athletes, inventors, entertainers with Latinx and Hispanic heritage. And whereas our Hispanic and Latinx community represents over 10% of the population of Ellensburg and provides a diverse cultural heritage that enriches the political, economic, and social growth of our community. And whereas the City Council encourages all members of our community to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments and contributions of these Hispanic and Latinx Americans, and to celebrate this rich culture with events, educational opportunities, language classes, and traditional Hispanic and Latinx foods. Now, therefore, the City Council of Ellensburg does hereby proclaim September 15 through October 15, 2023 as Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month. Signed this 18th day of September.
Thank you. We have no awards and recognitions, so the approval of the agenda is before you.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is before you.
Madam Mayor, I move consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are at item 6, petitions, protests, and communications, board and commission appointments, page 53. I believe we have 2 appointments this evening. The appointment to the Transit Advisory Commission, Charles Johnson, is automatic because he's CWU's representative. Correct. Phil Backlund has applied for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, has gone through the the process of attending a meeting and being interviewed. Phil, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening. My name is Phil Backlund. I'm at 2418 North Wheaton Court, and I did apply to be on the commission, and I'm really happy about the opportunity to serve on the commission, maybe to help address issues as you described in the beginning of the meeting, Nancy. I've been in Ellensburg for 44 years and been very happy to be here, and I hope to help create a community where everyone can feel as safe and comfortable as I have in my time here. Are there any questions you might have of me?
Questions? Thank you for your application. And Nancy, do you want to say?
I just might say that the commission feels that Phil, they're quite acquainted with Phil. He led us in a retreat a year ago and helped us get organized so that we can move forward and get some things done. He brings a wealth of experience having lived and taught and interacted with people all over the world for 30 years. He's quite passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion in Ellensburg, and we feel like he has talents and skills that will make our commission a lot stronger.
I need a motion to approve the appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the appointment of Phil Backlund to the DEI Commission. This is a public comment opportunity. Does anyone have any thing to add? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And I jumped the gun. So the PTAC appointment is 6B on the agenda. And we do need is Mr. Johnson here? Charles Johnson? Okay. This also is a public comment opportunity. Does anyone have anything to add? Okay. I would like a motion for this appointment as well.
Move to approve Charles Johnson to the PTAC committee.
I'll second.
Motion and second to approve Charles Johnson to the PTAC committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we are at citizen comment on non-agenda issues. So I'm just gonna go over the rules. So each speaker's, this is for things not on tonight's agenda. Each speaker's comments are to be limited to 3 minutes, and there should be a clock somewhere.
You got
The speakers are cautioned not to engage in conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. Speakers may not identify themselves as candidates for public office or make statements which assist anyone campaigning. And please note the council rules provide that no action will be taken by the council at the meeting at which a subject is first introduced during the citizen comment period. Council may consider an item at a future meeting, and the staff may follow up with speakers as necessary. And I just want to preface tonight's comments with maybe some expectations. There will be an open house on October 18th, where you can comment on a new proposal that is being drafted. The city has updated its website that is, I believe that the new version will be added to that website in a couple of days. So we don't have the new map to show folks tonight, but the landscape architect's working on it. So we welcome your comments on that as well. So we'll begin with Angela Lang.
Hello, I'm Angela Lang, 701 East 6th Avenue here in Ellensburg. Thank you for letting me speak. And Mayor, thank you for meeting with me yesterday. I really appreciate it. I'm going to read from my notes. According to the Reed Park Master Plan, neighbors' concerns were pedestrian safety, the number of cars driving to and from the park, the driving behaviors, general park behavior, the majority of which were thought to be high school and college age. Down further it reads, the commission recognizes that the popularity and history of Reed Park necessitates the need for a comprehensive public outreach and participation process. A year-long survey in which there were only 252 respondents does not meet that goal. UStransportation.gov website states that vehicle calming measures such as speed bumps, lowering the speed from 20 miles per hour down to 10 miles per hour would be great. Adding additional signage around the park, working to slow vehicles for pedestrian safety changes drivers' behavior. It happens when you do the calming methods. The speed bumps makes you slow down, right? It does definitely make a difference. Using cameras policed during times needed to watch the kids. As for the location of the sidewalks, there are different options. Number one is to continue the sidewalk up from Alder. There's already a beginning of the sidewalk right there at the corner. Bring it right up to the top to where the water tower is. And there's a pedestrian park by the water tower already. The park is elevated and can be made handicap accessible. And the view is amazing from that elevated position. And there is a walking path down to the other side of the water tower and connects to the John Wayne Trail. The existing park could be expanded and not affect the parking on the hill. Craig's Hill is more than Reed Park. No one who has lived here for over 20 or 25 years refers to Craig's Hill as Reed Park. It's Craig's Hill, right? Okay. So there's one main reason that this is so emotional to people here. It's the view. It's iconic. Memories have been made on that hill, and people that have been here forever, it's important to them. If the top 19 spaces are taken from the majority of the residents of Kittitas County, you are not meeting the goal that you have set. The goal in your planning process says maintain existing park elements that make Reed Park unique to our county or community. If you take that hill away from us, would you just make it another park? Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Paxton.
Nicole Paxton, 206 East Idaho Avenue. I'm here on behalf of the American Legion as their Women's Auxiliary President. First, I just want to say there seems to be some misperception about the American Legion. I've been hearing things, hearing us called things such as just a meeting hall. So I wanted to outline that we're actually, in fact, a business. And as a business, we need ample parking to run that business. The plans proposed significantly decrease the available parking on Craig's Hill. These changes will have a catastrophic effect on our ability to continue to run our business and provide support to some of the 4,000 U.S. veterans who call Ellensburg home. This will also negatively impact the community and the organizations that use our rental hall for training, memorials, baby showers, weddings, anniversaries, and much more. In the article posted to Facebook on September 8th, it was stated that the American Legion is unwilling to work with the city regarding changes to Craig's Hill, and we take umbrage with this statement. On two separate occasions, we met with City Manager Heidi Cernaway and Parks and Rec Director Brad Case at the American Legion with the hopes that we could come to an agreement that would work for all parties involved. The first meeting took place on April 20th. Two of our members, who are developers and contractors, took time to write up a hybrid plan that we believe would address some of the concerns on Craig's Hill, which is also called Reed Park. It was presented to the city representatives. Here's another copy of that hybrid plan, which was given to Heidi while she was at the American Legion. This plan was presented to Heidi and Brad, and an hour-long discussion took place where we touched on our concerns and how the preferred plan at that time, Plan D, would eliminate 28 spaces in which our members and visitors to our hall use on a weekly basis. We're also very concerned with the public restroom being placed directly across from our lounge. Many of our bartenders are females and leave the lounge alone late after dark. Our concerns and comments were met with eye rolls and exasperated sighs from the city representatives. On July 9th, we met again with City Manager Heidi Cernaway and Parks Director Brad Case, again at the American Legion. At this meeting, they gave us a map showing the proposed fire lanes, which seemed to be the worst proposal yet. In addition to marking the 450 plus feet of area we currently use as a fire lane, and they're marking it as a fire lane, they also asked us if we would consider giving them 5 feet of our property as an easement to help with parking congestion. We were not offered any type of compensation for the request to give up a piece of our land. And when looking closer at the fire lane map, you'll notice that it's not 5 feet, but rather 12.8 feet. Heidi mentioned that maybe we should consider paving our gravel parking lot and having striped, that perhaps that bit of organizing would give us more spots for our members. At no time were we offered compensation for the piece of land we were asked to give up. In that article, it made it sound like the American Legion was unwilling to budge or work with the city, and that's not the case.
Thank you. Scott Heberlo.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us have this moment to speak about the issues we're concerned about on the Hill. Apparently, this whole issue is basically based upon the IFC, the fire lanes, their widths, their positioning, what is and what isn't acceptable. The IFC says minimum of 26, maximum of 32. State of Washington was granted an amendment. Anyway, 20 feet is what we can get away with here, with a minimum of 15 feet to allow fire apparatuses to go around. And the 20 feet is based on, is what I understand, the issues in King County where their streets are, of course, much narrower. I've personally measured Craig Avenue from the entrance to the park to the water tower. The widest point is 15.5 feet. I'm not sure where the additional footage is going to come from. I believe that the pictures that I've seen take it into the park and not into the people who live up there's yards. And I have some pictures I could show you. We had some cars parked on both sides in front of the American Legion and what I consider to be one of the larger vehicles in our community. A garbage truck fit through there quite nicely without any issues, plenty of space on both sides. The American Legion at no time has been opposed to the IFC code or the state code. It has been presented to me that we said we were, and we in fact were not opposed to bringing the city, the Hill, everything into the realm of the code. So the fire apparatuses can access the Hill, the American Legion, and the 8 or 9 houses on the, I've been told the south side, but I think it's the east side of the park, depending on how you want to look at it. I would be glad to show you those photos if you'd like to see them at a future date. I also plan on attending some more meetings and the Parks and Rec meeting, because I personally feel that none of the options that have been given adequately suit the Hill, where it is a rite of passage for members of this community to be called out by the rodeo announcer for being too cheap to buy tickets and come down and watch the rodeo. People park up there, elderly who are not mobile. Kids, of course, are high school kids, but I have witnessed that they no longer meet up there like they did. The Bi-Mart parking lot seems to be the hot place for the high school kids now. I've witnessed this personally. I just want to say that I think that this could have been handled differently, perhaps better by all persons involved. The information was not put out there adequately, I don't feel, to the public, as it is a public park, and the citizens of this community have the right to voice their opinions like we are tonight. This is just the beginning of what I hope is a long dialogue that we can all come to agree on, involving bringing the parks, and I'm assuming all parks in the city, up to code. And we all live here. Well, I think we should be able to all get along and find a happy medium ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Natasha Norwood.
Good evening. Hello, I'm Natasha Norwood. I'm here today to follow up on what was being done with the locker and bathroom accommodations in the city pool. I was told by council members that we did not have the funds to cover the bathroom change at the city pool, but it's now come to light that we have, through Parks and Recreation, a $2.6 million fund for a new park vamp at the Craigs Hill that we
don't need. I understand that there was a possible safety concern as to why this was something to do, but I think a safe environment at our city pool locker rooms for all patrons is the most important. Due to the intimate naked setting, the money would be well spent in that area. I am here for solutions, not just to complain. I would suggest a new changing stalls and bathrooms separate, and the shower off area be inside the pool entrance. These are steps I feel in the right direction. And in the meantime, to close the showers down and/or put a notice that men or women could shower and expose themselves in the opposite gendered bathrooms. I myself wouldn't be okay knowing my husband could see another woman naked than me, or my husband would worry that another man is exposing himself to me or in our children. My husband and I don't shower in front of our children, and I wouldn't want strangers to have that option. I don't want to exploit anyone in this matter. I wouldn't want, it's with love and concern I say these things, and I would hope that all of us would agree. There was someone in the female locker room during family swim that didn't have a child with them and entered in the locker room after people went in and undressed in the shower area. And a woman complained there was a man in the shower and the people at the front desk didn't investigate the situation and stated that he identified that way. And they could do nothing. That's a fail in my book, when the concern was being brought up and nothing was being done by it. There is no way to vet individuals who claim to be the opposite sex, not when there's gender fluidity, where someone could be a woman one day and a man the next. You cannot react to a rape or / fondling happening. You need to keep that rape from happening. City police have stated that there isn't a lot they can do, but if I wanted to change things, to come here and speak to you. It's our obligation as a society to keep all parties safe and secure in public spaces. Boundaries need to be drawn and absolutes need to be in place. I would hope someone here would follow up on me with this matter, as you have my email, but would be happy to give it again. Thank you. And again, I would appreciate the consideration for this, because this is for everyone. This is not to single out any one person's. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Hill, I'm not sure if you're signed up, you're crossed out. Okay, thank you. Randy Jensen. Yes. Can I just ask you, Randy, if this is about the annual comprehensive plan that is on our agenda, and I would ask that you speak to us at that when that comes up on the agenda. So just hold on. Thank you. Okay. Trish Agnew.
Mayor Lillquist, council members and audience. My name is Trish Agnew, 109 South Ruby Street. I have worked for the American Legion Post 8 for over 40 years. This is not just a job. I love this place and have met many people, coworkers, members, veterans, community leaders. These different factions of Ellensburg, Kittitas County, are a group of individuals that come together as friends, family, and camaraderie that make us compatible to initiate and produce a common goal to serve and help the veterans in the community. Being at the center of Washington State, We are a gathering spot for statewide meeting for Legion College, district conferences, state meetings. Patrick Fire School meets here 4 times a year for wildfire school training. Meals on Wheels have used our commercial certified kitchen. The Cowboy Church have met on Sundays here while they were looking for a place to be permanent. Kittitas High School has several proms here in recent years. The American Legion is community oriented. We employ 10 people during the year, depending on the season. We also involve volunteers from the membership for help with maintenance, kitchen and cooking duties, and so on. We have a limited lunch every day, 7 days a week, and we are a viable business open daily. We pay taxes, support the veterans and the community. We are not just an occupied building for meetings. The Legion has a beautiful venue that is rented out for memorials, wedding, anniversary parties, holiday and specialty events. Also include retirement, birthday parties, and so on. We are desperately in need of parking to sustain our business. Parking is essential to maintain the support for our veterans and community efforts. Ways to join the Legion are several. You submit an application, bring your...
Ms. Agnew, so your time is up. I'm going to ask that everyone else has a chance to speak, and then if you need a little more time, we can. Thank you. Teresa Plough.
Teresa Plough, 140 Woodhouse Loop, Ellensburg, Washington. I didn't know I was coming to this meeting, but there is an issue that someone was speaking on that I know about. And also I know about Reed.
Ma'am, could you put the mic in front of you?
I also know about Reed Park, a little bit of the history. I was at one of the original city council meetings where council members, when Mary Morgan was on the board, were discussing why they wanted to do it. It was during a time when high school students were having American flags in the beds of their pickup trucks, and they were going up there at lunch. And she did not like that. I think there might be a history that's carried through. Don't know. I am an auxiliary member of the American Legion. And the reason I do that is because I watched my family serve in the war. I saw my brother go to Vietnam, and it is very personal to me that I became a member there, that he sponsored me, and he's in Wisconsin now, and I'm proud to be his daughter. I mean, his sister. And I like to go up there. I mean, I love looking over that rodeo grounds. I love this town. It's my birthday today. I'm here because I love this town. I love this community. I love every one of you. Even if we don't see everything the same, I am concerned about the swimming pool. And I thought about coming to Nancy Goodlow personally and speaking to her. I didn't want to just go to one of those meetings where a listening thing that you go to, because I wanted the community to listen to what I'm going to say. I was in Hawaii in the 1970s. I was at a beach party. I went up to the restroom, and it was near a base of some type. And I went in the public changing rooms, and there were no lights in there. And when I came out, I heard somebody in the restroom. The person washed their hands and they left. I figured I was the only one left in the restroom. I came out, I left the restroom. The changing rooms were to the left, and I was going out into the breezeway, out into the moonlight. It was a beautiful night. And an arm reached out and grabbed me from the changing room and started dragging me back in. And I had to fight for my life. And I have a little bit of PTSD, and I know it can happen. And once it happens, it's too late. You carry scars with you for the rest of your life that affect you. And I just won't feel comfortable going back in the restroom. I looked at the little accommodation you got there with 2 little stalls, and I don't know how a family can be safe in there either. So thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Pat Kelleher.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Pat Kelleher, 6530 Wilson Creek Road. I'm here to speak on improving public safety on Craig Avenue. I've submitted a drawing for your consideration last Thursday, and you probably have that in your packet. There's 2 main items. One is accessible on-street parking, and the other is a pedestrian access route or a sidewalk from the Legion to the water tower. And this would get people off the street, which is the only pedestrian mode route right now. Additionally, in my proposal is to set up 2 traffic counters that measure time, speed, and what kind of vehicle. And if you set those up, you'd get a baseline as to whether you have a speeding problem up there. And then you would also, I think, be shocked at the volume of traffic that uses that upper loop. After speaking at the last council meeting, I drove up to Craig Avenue and drove around. There were 10 cars parked up there after I had left the meeting. At night, you know, they weren't 10 together. They seemed to be sectioned off in 2s or 3s or whatever. But what were they doing up there at 9 o'clock on a Monday night? I don't know. They were just parked there enjoying themselves. And there's a huge volume that does that. When I go to work, I'll swing through there. There's 2 or 3 cars up there in the morning. After work, I'll swing by there. There are cars there. And then you have also the Legion volume. So it's a highly used area. We need to get some baseline data. And we also need to get some accessibility for other people in our community that aren't as fortunate as us. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last who have signed up. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to the council on matters that are not on the agenda tonight that didn't sign up? I'm going to offer it to Mrs. Agnew first, but I need to look at my okay. So there is no one online. So Mrs. Agnew, if you would like to finish your thoughts.
I just want to add that there are ways to join the Legion that aren't so complicated. You can come in, pick up an application, bring your DD 214, and it's $50 a year for veterans to join. These veterans are the backbone of the post. As a auxiliary, it's usually a female relative of the veterans and or a veteran. There are male auxiliary members now as well. uh, their work is fundraising for the club and working for veterans in need. There are several other charities that the club, they support for the club. They decorate the club. And this year, when we have our scholarship offering, it's going to be $3,500 to a local, meaning Cle Elum, Thorpe, Ellensburg, student for furthering their education, whether it be the university, trade school, beauty school, whatever. We are raising that to a sizable for us scholarship so that a student can utilize the offering. The last thing is the Sons are also, like the Legion and the auxiliary, a branch that supports the Legion and the veterans. They have also have a Legion members forming a new club within. It's a motorcycle riding club called the Legion Riders. An additional $25 per year is charged. Our inaugural ride is on 10/21 of this year. We would encourage you to come and see us at our facility and join us. Thank you.
Angie, if you can be very brief, please.
In regards to Pat Kelleher's response, people go up to Craig's Hill at all hours for different reasons. College people go for lunches, they go to relax, they go to read a book. It happens every day. You see people at night. So what? They want to go up and stargaze. I mean, give me a break. They want to look at the stars. They want to look at the lightning. They want to look at the rain. There's many reasons to go. And it's the same now as it was when I was growing up. Whether we were a kid, whether we're an adult, we love taking people up there. As far as memorials, you have to use the parking. You don't just have 5 people to go to a memorial service up there at the Legion. Events like weddings, it's 100 people. They need the parking spots. So to say that it should be limited, I disagree with that. That hill is made for us to use for a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you. If there is no further comment, last call, we'll move on to business requiring a public hearing. So item 8A. The purpose of this hearing is for the city council to receive information concerning the 2024 proposed revenue sources, including property tax. The hearing is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. If you wish to participate in the hearing, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9. If you are connected by a telephone, and wait until I've recognized your request and you have been unmuted. You should then begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you're speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Your testimony must only address the matter under consideration in this hearing. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
Yes, good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, Jerica Pasco, Finance Director for the City of Ellensburg. This public hearing is being held for the purpose of City Council consideration of and receiving public comment on the proposed 2024 revenue sources supporting the activities of the general fund. As set forth by state statutes, council shall receive information on the estimated general fund revenues from all sources for the current year, as well as estimates for the following budget period. The hearing must include consideration of possible increases of property tax revenues and must be held prior to the consideration of adopting an ad valorem property tax ordinance for 2024. Estimated 2024 revenues have been prepared to determine the availability of revenue to support the city's financial needs of the general government in 2024. Unlike enterprise funds, in which rates are set based on the cost of service or COSA, governmental funds must estimate revenues first and then back into expenditure budgets. The city's 2023-24 biennial budget considers the estimated available revenues and anticipated financial requirements and recommends an amount to be raised by ad valorem taxes in 2024. General fund revenue estimates are presented in the attachment titled General Fund 2024 Revenue Sources, beginning on page 64 of your report. Upon conclusion of this public hearing on revenue sources, first reading of the 2024 ad valorem property tax ordinance will be scheduled for council's November 6th, 2023 meeting. I also ask that you keep in mind that these figures are estimates or projections and will continue to change as more information becomes available. In addition, I think it's important to note that I may use the words estimates and projections interchangeably. So what do general fund activities include? General fund covers expenditures for council and city management, the general government, economic development, finance services, community development services, parks and recreation services, engineering services, library services, and police services, to just name a few. A majority of general fund expenditures are funded with tax revenue. This includes property tax, sales tax, other taxes and fees, and B&O tax, which is mostly includes our utility tax. The general fund does not include all governmental funds that are supported by some of these same tax sources, which I'll discuss later in this presentation, such as streets, arterial streets, debt, and capital constructions. Those are all in special revenue funds. Here we have 2024 projected revenues. This gives us a percentage breakdown of the estimated revenue sources. So as you can see, taxes account for majority of the general fund revenue sources at 69.5%, followed by charges for services at around 20.7%. Then we have intergovernmental revenues, licenses and permits, fines and penalties, miscellaneous, and any other financing sources, for a total revenue projection in 2024 of $21,096,915. If we add our estimated beginning fund balance for the general fund, it gives us a total general fund funding source of just over or just under 29 million. On the next chart here, we have the 2024 projected tax revenues. So with the tax revenues being the largest general fund revenue source, we show a breakdown by tax type and compare it to current year estimates. This type of graph you'll see is different in a lot of the different locations. We're pretty, about half of it is for sales tax, but then we have a pretty equal split between property tax and utility taxes. Other areas, even of the county, are going to be more supported by property tax or sales tax and don't have the necessary utility taxes. This chart, however, does not include other sales taxes, such as the 0.3% for criminal justice, or the 0.1% for affordable housing, or the 0.2% for transit tax. Those are separate internal service, or not internal service, but special revenue funds, and aren't included in the general fund. Property tax, with these estimates here, this includes if we were to raise property tax by the 1%, that would give us a 2024 estimate of about 3.5 million. The B&O taxes are estimated to be just under 4 million, which is about a 2.6% increase over the 2023 estimates. Sales tax, we didn't use an increase right now over our current 2023 estimates. And that's because since the beginning of the year, we've seen the increase over 2022's sales tax decline. And so we're projecting hopefully to hold our sales tax steady next year, not necessarily an increase at this time, but that's again, one of those numbers that can change really quickly. Other taxes, which include admissions tax and leasehold taxes, we're keeping that steady too at 129,000. That doesn't really change a whole lot. So overall, we're projecting only around $133,000 increase for the year in our 2024 estimated tax revenue, which isn't really a whole lot when you consider inflation right now. Just as a reminder, we have limited control over taxes as a revenue source. State law limits increasing property tax to the lower of 1% over the prior levy, or the IPD, the implicit price deflator, which is a measure of inflation method, whichever is lower. Utility tax is dependent on weather, consumption, and very price dependent. And sales tax, again, there are many economic factors, with construction being one of the most volatile. Here we have our 2024 revenue sources excluding taxes, the largest of which is charges for services. However, this is a little bit misleading. Most of these charges for services are charges to ourselves. It's for cost allocation to the other funds, such as the utility funds. So right now, again, we will charge gas, light, water, sewer, all the other funds for a portion of the work that, say, the city manager does or the finance department does in collecting the utility bills and billing and stuff. So majority of our charges for services are to our other funds. There's a very small other amount that's for things like recreation fees and library services, not much else, a few community development fees. Fines and penalties consist mostly of utility late fees or disconnect fees. Miscellaneous right now is majority of that is interest. You'll see I have a slight decrease in the 2024 estimates because miscellaneous is generally left open. That's the stuff that we aren't expecting to receive that we end up receiving throughout the year. And our increase of our 2024 over our estimate or over our budget is significant. And that's because we've talked a lot in the last few council meetings about our investments and the money we're making in investments, and that goes into our miscellaneous revenue that we're using to help cover these other general fund expenditures. And intergovernmental revenue consists mostly of grants. So right now that number for 2024 is lower than 2023 as well. And that's because a lot of the grants that we don't have secured yet, we don't budget them until we have them secure. And then licenses and permits consist mostly of building licenses and permits. So overall, our 2024 estimates, other than taxes, we're looking at around $108,000 decrease, which takes up the majority of the increase that we're projecting to see for taxes. That one includes all the 2023 estimates compared to 2024, kind of gives you, again, the big picture where we're looking at our 2023 estimates coming in at about $21,071,000 and 24 estimates coming in at around $21,096,000. Our beginning fund balance for 2023 was 9.8 million, and we're projecting our beginning fund balance for 2024 to be about 7.8 million. So a total decrease in the general fund funding sources of about 6.2%. Again, overall, our revenue sources estimates are down about 6.2%, but that's mostly due to intergovernmental revenues and grants still yet to be applied for or secured, and a few other miscellaneous items. There is significant uncertainty on the outlook of controlling inflation and the timing and length and severity of a looming recession and the impacts it may have on these revenue projections. This one we added to sales tax, since it's one of the largest revenue sources for the general fund available to cities. always feel it's important to give a little bit more information on the sales tax trends and what it supports. So outside of the general fund, the other stuff that our large chunk of sales tax has to support are streets. So the column there, the green section is for streets. The blue section, because you can't really see that, that's our other general government, and the portion in red is for GO or general obligation debt. A lot of this blue too would be capital projects. The chart below here shows our regular retail sales tax. So over the years, beginning in 2014, the portion in red is the portion that we see for construction projects. And so we typically spend those on one-time spending because it is very volatile and it's smaller. So you can see our one-time spending trend with the green line, and then the blue lines is the other non-construction sales tax that we've received over the years. The top chart here shows a percentage of increase in regular sales tax collected over the previous years. So you'll see that it's over the previous years, it's gone up and down. Our big decrease that you see in 2018, or about 3/4 of the way through the chart, was due to us going from a accrual basis to cash basis reporting. And then you'll see a decrease. A lot of the decrease from in 2020 may have been due to timing of reporting due to COVID. The state let some lapse in reporting there for sales tax and stuff. And so we don't get those actual numbers. So that may have contributed to a little of the decrease that we see in 2020 over 2019. And then we started to see an increase back in our sales tax in 2021, but it did start to drop over 2022. And now we're about halfway through 2023 on these numbers. And the bottom chart is just finish our report showing a trend of sales tax from month to month or seasonally. Collections are up and down, but overall they follow a pretty seasonal trend, except for the dark blue line that you probably can't see here because it's really, really small in this, but that has to do with the year of COVID. And so the majority year of COVID, so it didn't follow those basic seasonal trends. Staff recommends council conduct the public hearing and consider the information received. No further action is required pending the 2024 ad valorem property tax ordinance and first reading, which is set for November 6th. And I'm also here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. The floor is open to testimony from the public. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the council regarding the proposed revenue sources? Okay. Staff have anything to add? Are there, well, there wasn't anyone to begin with. So, okay. So council, do you have any questions of the staff?
I do.
Or public? Go.
Do you have a way of tracking what percentage of the sales tax is paid by residents of the city versus not the city?
We do not.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, the public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Since this hearing is only for the purpose of the council receiving information, no action is being requested of the council and the matter is closed. But we will get it again on November 6th, right? Thank you. And I'm going to backtrack just briefly. I meant to say at the close of the citizen comment that if anyone would like staff to contact them, please provide the city clerk with your contact information. For those that are left. Okay. So moving to item 8B. The purpose of this hearing is for the city council to consider amendments to the city's comprehensive plan and first reading of ordinance 4926, which would implement those changes. The public hearing is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. If you wish to participate in the hearing, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you are connected by telephone and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. You should then begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you're speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Your testimony must only address the matter under consideration in this hearing. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
Yes, there is. All right. Good evening, council members. Madam Mayor, my name is Jeremy Johnston, Community Development Planning Manager. Before you this evening is our annual docket cycle proposals for 2023. In accordance with the Washington State Growth Management Act, the City of Ellensburg initiates an annual docket cycle to respond to changing circumstances or needs of the city. This is a Type 5 process, which is outlined in Ellensburg City Code 15.250.090. City Council approved 5 docket amendments on July 17th, 2023 to move forward for consideration in this annual docket cycle. The 2023 docket cycle was submitted to the Department of Commerce and a SEPA determination of non-significance was issued on August 14th, 2023. The SEPA comment period ended on September 5th with no comment submitted. The 60-day notice to Commerce concludes on October 13th. And this public hearing was noticed on September 14th in the Daily Record. As mentioned, to date, we have received no public or agency comments on any of the docket proposals. Ellensburg City Code 15.250 outlines processing requirements for comp plan docket amendments. This initially requires that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing and make a recommendation to City Council prior to Council's first scheduled meeting in October. The Planning Commission did hold this hearing on September 14th to consider these 2023 annual docket amendment proposals, and the Planning Commission made recommendations on each item to the council. This code section, Ellensburg City Code 15.250, instructs City Council to make one of the following decisions on each item: either approval in accordance with the findings and recommendations submitted by the Planning Commission, approval with modifications. They can refer all or part of the plan text or map amendment proposal back to the Planning Commission, or refer all or part of the plan text or map amendment proposal to the following year's annual amendment process, or they can disapprove the item. So I will present each one of these items individually and field any questions the council may have at the conclusion of each item's presentation. I might confer a little bit with our city attorney to understand the process of how this usually works. It sounds like once we've gone through each item, the council has asked any questions, we'll move on to the next item and then conduct the public comment period at the end and ask for a decision from the council. Is that correct?
I think we need to go through all of it and then.
Yeah, Jeremy, we'll need to go through all the items at once and then open it up to public.
That's what I was trying to say, but I guess I mistaken.
Okay.
I apologize.
Maybe I just misunderstood. Sure.
Fair enough. Okay, so first item, docket item 2301. So a 6-year capital improvement plan is required each year. And this is an update of the various departments listed in the PowerPoint there. To manage the following systems. Those are electric, information technology, natural gas, parks and recreation, sewer systems, stormwater, telecommunications, transportation, wastewater treatment, and water systems. The applicable departments that manage these systems submitted their amendments to the capital improvement plan for the year 2024 to 2029. I have requested that the representatives from these departments be present because I am not a good knowledge source on these amendments. But as they were presented, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the item as presented. And yeah, if you have questions regarding the specifics of those proposals, I believe we have representatives in the audience that can accommodate that. Okay, docket item 2302. This is a future land use zoning conversion table. This item was originally proposed by Mayor Lilquist and assembled by community development staff. And the purpose of this amendment is to provide some clarity within the comprehensive plan for property owners and staff to understand zoning options for each future land use designation. If approved, the conversion table will be added to the comprehensive plan as table 7 and inserted directly below the future land use map within the comprehensive plan's land use section. Staff have already began work on updating our land development code in this section for consistency with this conversion table and in anticipation of a possible approval of this item. So what we were addressing here is, this is an example, and hopefully this can be seen well on the screen. Maybe I can zoom in if you guys can't see it. So in our zoning code, each specific zoning designation is spelled out. Some purpose statements are offered. And then there's a section in each one of these that describes what zones are appropriate within specific future land use designations. So as you can see in item 6, which I've outlined here, in A, it says areas designated residential neighborhood, blended residential neighborhood, or urban neighborhood in the comprehensive plan. And below these sections, you see a little bit more ambiguous statements, like for example, B, areas located adjacent to a collector or arterial roadway, an area centralized to serve existing and/or planned residential neighborhoods within 1/4 mile of the site. This creates some ambiguity in terms of what the options actually are. So I think the point of this page here is the table that we are proposing. This lists the future land use designations on the left. We followed largely what was in that zoning table. So in the zoning table, in those item A's, in each zone, it expresses the appropriate future land use designation. So this is largely a reflection of that. Now, that being said, there are a few zoning designations that didn't point to any future land use designations. So we tried to read those purpose statements and fit those in where they made sense based off the purpose statements. This is largely just a reflection of that. We think this will create a lot more transparency, a lot more ease of use for both the public and staff in terms of navigating what's really appropriate when someone applies for a rezone application. And I think that's the goal of this. So this was, again, this is in your review materials, but the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this item as presented. The next item, docket item 2303, is a citizen proposed amendment to the roadway functional classification map. This map, the citizens proposing to remove one of the minor collector streets from the applicant's property. It was proposed to run through their property. So I'm going to try to zoom in here if I can. This is going to be hard to see. To the next map. Sensitive mouth. Okay. Well, hopefully you can see. I'm trying to outline it. So basically, there is a proposed future minor collector that runs off of Galloway Road, and here. So the portion of the future roadway which is proposed to be removed, it abuts West Galloway Road, beginning at parcel 62633. It's outlined in that red section you can see there that was primitively drawn by myself. It traverses north through the applicant's property before shifting northwest through city-owned property and concluding at its proposed intersection with North Potts Road, as indicated on the map. I'm just trying to show here as much as you guys can see of it. So the proposal is basically to remove this road. Staff consulted with Public Works to see what kind of impact this could have on the future roadway classification system to make sure this wasn't going to be an issue. Public Works indicated that it would not cause any significant issue and that the same roadway could just intersect with Potts Road and run west from there. So the new map. Here's a picture of what would be the amended map, which indicates that roadway gone off of Galloway and that future minor collector would just intersect with Potts Road and run west from there, or northwest, I suppose. The Planning Commission also recommended approval of this item as presented. Okay, docket item 2304. So Community Development received an application for a map amendment by Randy and Dan Jensen to amend the future land use map for parcels 1819333, 1719333, 025236, and 191933. The proposal would reassign these parcels from a community mixed use designation to a heavy industrial designation. Here is a the vicinity map of the area. The 4 parcels are all contained within that red rectangular shape there. The next map I have actually indicates the future land use designation as indicated by the comprehensive plan. Everything in blue there is the community mixed use future land use designation. And the brown that's sort of to the east, that is a public institutional zoning. There's currently a fire station there. To the south, you can see some green areas that run along the Palouse to Cascades trail, and those are in an open space designation. And then you can get a hint of the yellow to the north, which is a residential designation. So staff reviewed this application for consistency with the comprehensive plan and general development patterns of the area. The parcels are surrounded by a variety of uses, including some residential uses. Specifically to the north, there's some vacant lands. There's a veterinary clinic to the west, as mentioned, a fire station. To the east, some vacant properties in the Palouse to Cascades Trail to the south. After review of this application, staff do not believe the proposal is consistent with the general development pattern of the area and could result in some incompatible uses. The planning commission recommended disapproval of this item. And then on to docket item 2305. This is an amendment to our economic development chapter. This was originally submitted by Centerfuse in 2021, suggesting amendments to the economic chapter of the comprehensive plan. The amendment was continued in the 2022 cycle and then again continued to 2023. The current proposal addresses grammatical issues, general updates. It adds a COVID-19 impact section, an equity section, expands on the arts and culture and business development sections, and updates demographic and household income data. And the complete changes have been provided in your review materials. And the planning commission did recommend approval of this item as presented with an anticipated revision following the planning commission hearing to add an equity section. For the time it was originally brought before planning commission, it was there were some revisions that they still wanted to make in terms of adding that equity section. So planning commission recommended approval with that small addition of that paragraph regarding the equity section. And those are the items in your 2023 docket cycle. Staff is seeking determination from council as well as a first reading of the ordinance 4926.
Okay, the floor is open to testimony from the public. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone who would like to speak to any of the comprehensive plan amendments? Mr. Jensen?
Good evening. Good evening, and thank you for hearing my proposal. My name is Randy Jensen. I'm the owner of the properties in question. They're at 1880 through 1930 Van H Highway. We've owned the properties for about close to 20 years on a couple of the parcels. I'm asking the city to allow these parcels to go from highway commercial to industrial. And the reason why is our company is a foundation supply company. We're going into manufacturing. City of Ellensburg is a perfect location for us. We have operations in Spokane. We have operations in Tacoma. Right dead center would be a good place for the manufacturing. We tried to find some industrial in the city. There is no industrial that fits our needs. The property that we own there fits the bill. If you guys take a look at that exhibit C, the planning commission stated that it would create a pocket of heavy industrial zone. It would not be, it would be incompatible. But if you look at C, you'll notice that right next to it is fire station. On the other side of it is commercial. We have a lumber yard. We have storage on both sides. We have the trail. There is going to be no residential next to this property at all. It can't, there is no way there's going to be any residential. It's got a freeway right in front of it. It's perfect for industrial. It will create a pocket of industrial use, but it's perfect because it's not going to have any would say interference with residential. And if you look at exhibit B, that's the facilities we're building in Tacoma right now. That's the facilities we're going to build in Spokane. And what we're proposing is to build that exact right there. If you look at look at Exhibit A, we're going to put 4 buildings in there. It is compatible with everything else around. It looks the same. It'll probably enhance the look of that area. What we need is heavy industrial so we can actually manufacture stuff inside the buildings. And so we can actually make the clips, we can make the snap ties here. Currently, we're buying them overseas. But we have purchased the manufacturing equipment to do it here. So either we do it in Ellensburg or we do it in Tacoma or we do it in Spokane. Ideally, it would be better to do it here because it's centrally located. But that's basically where we're at. I thank you for your consideration on our project, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, let's sit down.
Mr. Judson, do you have copies of those exhibits for the city clerk?
Oh, you didn't get one? Okay.
And then, Madam Mayor, it'd be appropriate for you to accept those, I think, as the next exhibit in the hearing as Exhibit J. As you just accept them as a group, I think, is good. Exhibit J. Sure.
So we will enter into the record the exhibits provided by Mr. Jensen as exhibit.
One other thing, we figure it's going to be about 40 to 50 jobs will be created by this. We're going to be sticking in probably $4 to $8 million to put this project in here. It would be really nice to be able to really have that industrial zone. 2 of the buildings we're going to be using ourselves. We'll probably be leasing out the 3rd building or the 4th building. But there's potential of having some good paying jobs from this project. Any questions?
We need to follow the script, so there's a time for questions after we've heard from folks. So is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding the comprehensive plan amendments? And seeing no one online, does the staff have anything to add?
I do not, unless you have questions.
Are there any persons in the audience who would like to add non-repetitive information or evidence? So staff or council, do you have any questions of staff or the public?
I do.
Go.
Where and what is the current inventory of heavy industrial property in the city of Ellensburg?
The truth is, there's not a lot of it. I mean, when part of the review of this was to try to get an understanding of the industrial land. What does exist for industrial lands mostly is light industrial within the city. The city would benefit from some heavy industrial land, we believe. We just don't believe that the proposed area would be the correct area to do that due to the adjacent uses.
Would you mind spending some more time elaborating on the differences between heavy and light industrial and the potential impacts of having heavy industrial versus light industrial in a specific area?
Sure, I can speak sort of generally to that. So our use table will spell out the specifics of it, but so light industrial tends to be generally like light manufacturing. Some examples might be a metalworking, creating hinges or things like that. Things that have externalities, noise, maybe some potential pollution externalities, but not very intensive. Heavy industrial gets into a different category because it's generally a catch-all for the very significant types of industrial uses. So you would anticipate uses that could potentially have a lot more pollution associated with them, a lot more noise associated with them, a lot more impacts to adjacent properties. Those can range quite a bit, and within the heavy industrial use table, you'll see uses that are outright permitted, some that will require conditional use approval so that those externalities can be mitigated. It sort of depends on the intensity of the use that's being proposed. So without the use table directly in front of me, I can only kind of speak to those generalities, but there are a lot more uses generally allowed in the light industrial zone. Again, heavy industrial is just pretty much a catch-all for those really significant industrial uses. Those are the ones with a lot of externalities.
I have a question related to that following. I guess that's kind of what I was wondering too. It's probably outdated, but my experience with heavy industrial is smokestack industries, odors, vibration,
smoke, that kind of thing. We don't like them around airports because they interfere with flight of aircraft. It's my experience with them. But what I was wondering is whether the kind, and I realize the planned use by the property owner doesn't affect the actual zoning decision because the property could be sold and another owner could come in and propose something completely different. But I guess my question was with the sorts of manufacturing that Mr. Jensen described, in your opinion, does that line up with our definition of heavy industrial? It seems like it might apply to a lighter industrial designation, whether light or medium. I was kind of an open question that I thought I'd ask.
Sure. Well, I'd have to consult the use tables to know specifically. But I think you're correct in the sense that that most people, what conjures into their head when you think heavy industrial or large smokestacks, sort of uses that create a lot of potential issues to neighboring properties. Yeah, without the use table in front of me, it's difficult for me to get very specific on whether that use. Our review of this was largely to look at what are potential heavy industrial uses, and we weren't looking at this from a specific project perspective. We're trying to think of, what's worst case scenario if we put this heavy industrial zone here? What could be built on that? And based off that analysis, it just seemed that the potential uses could be very impactful to neighboring properties.
And I guess along the same lines, as a practical matter, would you think that the proposed uses as they've been described would not be compatible in any way with a commercial highway zone?
I'm not completely familiar with what the externalities of those uses would be. So potentially, yes. But again, what I always caution is I look for worst case scenario. What could this create? And while the use that Mr. Jensen proposes could very well, be very limited in terms of the impacts on the neighboring properties, what happens 10, 20 years down the road if a different use is put under there once you establish that zoning designation.
Councilmember, if I could interject on adding to what Jeremy said. So the heavy industry definition under our code includes construction, mining, manufacturing, transportation, and public utilities due to the land use intensity impacts typically associated with large industrial uses, their accessory outdoor outdoor storage uses, and large building areas. It includes, but is not limited to food processing, wrecking yards, building material manufacturing, chemical plants, concrete and asphalt plants, freight facilities, and livestock feeding lots. So the other thing I would point out is that, just as the GMA guides us on zoning changes, and we can't have spot zoning that isn't consistent with adjacent uses and with our comprehensive plan, the same applies to future land uses. So I'm not prepared to say that would not be upheld under the Growth Management Act, but there would be a concern about citing a heavy industrial use solely within other uses that are not, at least according to our use table, compatible with that use.
So would something like this would an option be for a conditional use permitting process to mitigate the potential impacts if it stays the current zoning, they can come back and get a conditional use permit?
Most likely not within the community mixed use future land use designation. So currently it's commercial highway zone, I believe is what those properties are zoned. So they'll be limited to those types of uses generally, commercial related uses. And since the community mixed use, the blue area that we saw on that map around there, that would provide for a variety of generally low impact commercial uses and some residential uses. So the idea, the blue area on the map that I showed you indicates areas where we might have some blend of sort of a lower impact commercial and residential uses right in proximity of that site.
And the community mixed use does not include light industrial.
No.
It cannot be rezoned to light industrial. I guess along the lines of Rich's question, does our code allow for contract zones? So just a contract specifically with them to build just a specific thing that.
So the code it basically refers to the use table in terms of any type of proposed use. So in industrial uses, they're very specific, both light and heavy industrial uses. So there would be no way to establish an industrial use that isn't permitted in the use table within another zone without a reason.
But if it were zoned heavy industrial, there could be a, instead of opening it up to the entire list, it would be conditional on just this particular use.
I'm not aware of a mechanism that would allow that without a complete zone change to heavy industrial.
Question. Is there any possibility that Mr. Jensen's project could be in a light industrial zone?
It could be potentially, I didn't review it for the light industrial zone, but it could potentially be rezoned as light industrial. I think, again, you're walking that, the line that Terry mentioned, that, you know, we don't know if this would be viewed as a spot zoning, because it's just, even light industrial would seem a little inconsistent with the area around it. Again, if you're anticipating the potential for residential and lower impact commercial uses to be established around it, which our future land use designation map does anticipate that. It can either be deterrent for those uses being developed in the future, or it could impact people that actually develop those residential type mixed use and lower impact commercial uses.
When you say residential around, just that not immediately adjacent to.
So it would be, again, just to the right is the fire station, which has that public institutional zoning, and you have commercial zoning to the, on the opposite side. Really, where the residential uses are, the potential for that would be directly across the street, where you have some vacant land, and you have a few current residential uses. You also have just south of the Palouse Cascades Trail, which is county jurisdiction and it's not part of our urban growth area. And I don't know, you don't know what kind of residential uses could be potentially going there in the future. It would, that would be up to the county to determine what's appropriate for that area.
Rich, do you have any-
So as a follow-up question, so by virtue of the definition that the city attorney read, Twin Cities is heavy industrial.
Probably, I don't know if it's zoned that way. Sometimes, you know, zones will change over time, so I'm not sure how long they've been in that location, but it could have been established prior to it being a heavy industrial use. I don't know if it is. It could be a light industrial use. Sometimes there's a little bit of overlap there, a little bit of gray area. But again, I haven't looked that closely into the light industrial option because I was mostly focused on the heavy stuff for this proposal.
Yeah, I guess my point is that there's a fairly large beer manufacturer across the street too, in the area, which you might like it, but it produces a smell.
Sure.
Yeah, and a vet doesn't seem like your typical commercial activity. I mean, it's zoned commercial, but a veterinary clinic is more along those industrial lines and
they do
definitions, but
dispose of animals by burning.
so, but we are at questions. So are there any further questions? So the public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter. And I will remind you, there are at the bottom of page 71 and top of 72 are options for each of the proposals. So, for docket item 2301, 2, 3, and 5, does the council have a recommendation?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move approval in accordance with the findings and recommendation that was submitted by the Planning Commission for docket proposal 2301, 2302, 2303, and 2305.
Is there a second? Yes. Motion and second to approve the comprehensive plan amendments 2301, 2, 3, and 5 as recommended by the Planning Commission. Is there any discussion?
Just clarifying, are we coming back to talk more about 2304?
Yes. That would.
That was
we
my
need-
assumption.
We need to make
Yes.
a recommendation, but it is
That was just clarification.
going to be more complicated. So just in noting that the DEI Commission wanted, or the Planning Commission, somebody wanted to tweak the economic development chapter a little more. I do as well. I spoke with Kelly today. I would like to include more of the update more of the numbers. It starts out with stating the population as of 2019, and I think we can do better than that. And you know, just a lot of the numbers didn't get updated, and there are a few what I consider kind of small Scrivener's areas, like it's still called Jazz in the Valley on page 121. But also I would like the opportunity to look at the goal statements, to incorporate more of the joint Kittitas County strategic economic development strategic plan, because that's in particular, you know, there's 5 pillars in that plan, and one of them is infrastructure, and I did not see infrastructure highlighted in these goal statements as, you know, this is one of the ways that we can affect economic development. And so if
Could I ask, would it be your preference to remand that back to the planning commission and staff, pull it out of the group? Or do you think it can be handled through, because my assumption was approved with the changes that were identified, not specifically, but the expectation there could be some changes. Is it premature to docket it?
well, what I would propose is approving it with the understanding that between first reading and second reading of the ordinance, that there might be some amendments proposed, and they would be mostly minor. But if you think that
No, I
adding
don't.
some of those other things
I just didn't know how,
deserves a remand, then
no, I don't know how lengthy this set of revisions
And if it-
is.
yeah.
So I'm assuming
So
if
if-
it can be done, I'm good with it.
mostly it's just, let's get more current numbers.
Mostly.
And well,
There's
I'd like,
substantial changes. I won't vote to approve it as a blanket. I'd like to approve it individually so that it can be separated out.
but I don't have any changes to be proposed tonight, so it would come back in the form of the ordinance, and you can
But if it's
take
linked, but if it's
those and
linked to
not.
the other 4, if we pass it first reading, linked to the other 4, it's tied to the other 4, separated out, and I'd be comfortable moving it forward, considering those changes and voting for it. I don't want a blanket or amendment vote. If you're gonna change.
Okay.
But with that, could I just withdraw the motion? We'll do a new one. It'll be cleaner, I think.
Does the second agree? Okay. So motion is withdrawn. So
I think Councilmember Elliott could probably. Or do you want, okay. Okay, I'll do the simple part. So I would move the council docket, approve docketing of, or the, as docketed, I guess, is it?
it's already
Yes,
docketed.
it's
We
docketed,
approved.
approve, okay. So docket proposal 2301, 2302, and 2303.
Second.
Motion and second to approve comp plan amendments 2301, 2302, and 2303 as recommended by the Planning Commission. And there was a second? Yeah. So is there any discussion on those 3? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I too vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And Mayor, move approval of 2304.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to approve comp plan amendment 2304. Discussion?
Yeah, I'm respectful of the planning commission and community development's work on this, and I get that you want all the pieces to fit together. But in my 27 years in Ellensburg, what I've heard from the council was that we're seeking to bring in a mix of businesses, including industrial, and our own assessment of our inventory is it's not very much and we don't know what it is, and it's industrial light. I guess, I'm looking at this. I think there's a better way for us to do this, and I think we can move forward with I get it that you want to be careful about, this pocket zoning or whatever you call it, but I just feel like we've been talking around the issue for a really long time, and what I heard sounds like a very reasonable project that meshes with the businesses around there. And I'm probably going out on a limb here, but I've spent probably as much time close to that occupancy, even sleeping close to that occupancy. I don't feel like if this is done right, that it's a detractor. I think it's an asset to the community. And it takes advantage of our geography, which is part of our economic development plan.
Adam, do you have?
I would second that. I feel we need more job creation throughout Ellensburg. And this is a great location for that development to happen, rather than moving into downtown areas and trying to rezone something there, like the old milk facility down on 3rd Street there. Or I believe it's 3rd. As Mr. Jensen had stated, it's going to create 40, 50 jobs. It's worth it to me.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. I voted not to docket this item initially because I had this preconceived notion of what heavy industrial manufacturing would look like, and what I've heard tonight doesn't fit that category at all, or at least my notion of that category. So I would support the motion.
I would add, I guess back to my earlier comment, my vision of what was presented is it's not heavy industrial. And I recognize that in reality, what's being proposed may be far more compatible with the surrounding parcels than a tannery or a smokestack industry. However, we do, as Councilmember Elliott indicated, we aren't zoning for the proposed development. The specific site plan. So we have to be prepared for the possibility that something else quite different may end up on that parcel with an approval. And I think that's what Councilmember Elliott was urging. I don't see anything on the surface of the proposal that's particularly objectionable. But I know it might be a different thing if it was a sand and gravel operation or something like that. So it's a toss up, but I think on balance, I think it is, as proposed anyway, more in line with some of the other miscellaneous commercially industrial activities along Vantage Highway. So I'd be inclined to support the motion.
Monica?
Yeah, I agree that I would like to see more jobs in Ellensburg. It doesn't feel that this specific proposal is contradictory, is a sore thumb, so to speak, to what's happening nearby, but I also feel a little bit at a loss for understanding the impacts of the GMA and the long-term impacts should it be sold in 5 years, 15 years. So it makes me nervous to go heavy industrial right now without more information.
And that's why I would prefer to refer it back to the planning commission to for them to understand and about the specific proposal and whether heavy industrial is the correct zoning for the use that we saw, and whether there is another way to get to yes, than locking that property into a heavy industrial spot zone for future possibilities.
I think that actually does make sense, but I'd also what I'd also be interested in knowing from staff, I think, as much as the planning commission is, I think from the city's perspective, we have to also factor in the risk of appeal and losing an appeal. And I know that we can't predict that, but I'd be interested in knowing if, to your point, if the more appropriate version of industrial would lessen the risk of spot zoning appeal on the basis of spot zoning. And maybe there's no easy answer to that, but I think it would be part of what the planning commission could maybe drill down into. Because I do think that's a real risk. I mean, as much as we think it's a great project, and if we could get a company to bring 40 new jobs to Ellensburg, it's fantastic. But if we lose on appeal, it's not going to happen. So that's if someone were to appeal it. I'm saying, not the city. So I like the idea of remanding, but I think, does that, in your view, allow enough time for this to come back to us before the end of the docket period?
That's a question. I don't know if there's a time limit if we remand back.
No, if you remand it back, it'll, and whatever else is approved tonight would move forward with a second the ordinance will have to be amended and then bring it back. But this particular item, if it's remanded and comes back, would be a separate action, separate ordinance then.
So we can do that second action at any time.
Yeah,
whenever it is
well, I
ready.
think by code, and Jeremy may have a better take on this, but I think that code requires it be brought forward in October. There's obviously not enough time to get this to the planning commission and get this back to you at the second meeting in October. So then the question is if the planning commission comes back with something that recommends it probably has to be referred into the next docket cycle, is my guess.
So,
Jeremy is
but it did come before us, and referring it back was an option for us.
well, we have obviously like last year's docket cycle wasn't adopted until January of this year. So
Yeah.
that's a possibility. But it would be, there would be an amendment required for first reading tonight to bring it back for second reading with the approved ones.
Okay.
So I guess I'm willing to remand it back because I have those same concerns. I don't want to throw this out and say this is a next year project arbitrarily. So I'd like to give them an opportunity, but if the option to remand this back and let it work through and maybe come back to us in a form that's a little less.
I think we could do that.
I would support.
To Councilmember Miller's point of the appeal as well, I feel like we might be setting a precedent if we don't look at our options here to bring this industrial in. Future development of industrial within our area is probably not going to happen because people aren't going to want to come here if we're not going to allow it. So that's also something to keep in mind.
What do we need to do it correctly?
Yeah. My point on the appeal was just as the attorney mentioned, if we approve something with what's considered spot zoning, we open ourselves up to an appeal. So I'm not saying it would be successful. I'm just saying it could exist.
Madam Mayor, I'll withdraw my proposal.
Second. Okay, so motion is withdrawn. Is there a new motion?
How would we say this?
Well, I think we say we would refer 2304 proposal back to the planning commission.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to propose we remand docket 2304 back to the planning commission and an evaluation on the type of zoning that would actually fit the proposed use.
Second.
Motion and second to refer docket item 2304 back to the planning commission to evaluate the proper zoning
In this.
and land use
that's with it.
classifications.
That would be within this cycle, not
Yes,
pushed
in
to
this
next year.
cycle.
the 2023 cycles.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Mayor, I propose we approve 2305.
So the question was about the changes.
This is just first reading, so they can come back separately and we'll decide whether we'd like changes.
Second.
Motion, motion and second to approve docket item 2305.
With
Pending, pending proposed changes, evaluation, review of proposed changes. No. We're gonna approve 2305. We'll propose changes and then you guys can evaluate those and just the changes.
That'd be between first and second reading then.
Yeah. That was the plan. So, okay, so there's a second, right? Motion a second up to approve 2305. All in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so now we need to amend 29, the ordinance 2946, or I guess we can put that on the table as is and then amend it.
Correct. Need a motion first.
Motion. So the motion would be to conduct first reading of ordinance 4926.
So moved.
second,
Terry, can you identify what we need to amend?
I'm looking at it right now. Well, at a minimum, you would have to, the whereas clauses mention the disapproval of 2304.
What page are we even on?
It's on page 148 of the agenda
Okay, thank
packet.
you. Can we generically say approve it?
I
pending-
think the easiest thing is to ask staff to provide an amended ordinance at second reading that excludes any disapproval of docket item 2304. And we can go in and then excise that information out.
And
That
it reflects the remand.
reflects the remand, exactly.
Does anyone want to make that amendment?
I will.
Second.
That was.
Motion and second to ask staff to provide amending language at before second reading that reflects the remand to the planning commission of docket item 2304 rather than disapproval. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
I think we did that right.
Thank you.
We need a reading of the ordinance.
We need to read it.
As it's listed.
Yes, just as the title.
Okay. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, amending the comprehensive plan adopted by ordinance 4785 and set out in chapter 15.120 of the Ellensburg City Code.
Okay, thank you. Item 9A is the dissolution of the Senior Advisory Commission, page 180.
Good evening, Council and Madam Mayor. I'm Caitlin Clevet, Adult Activity Center Coordinator. At your September 18th meeting, Council conducted a first reading of Ordinance 4925. This proposed ordinance is to dissolve the Senior Advisory Commission. Since the first reading, staff has received no additional comments or feedback related to this ordinance. The request before you tonight is to conduct second reading and adoption of Ordinance 4925. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, then.
So just for the viewing public, we're not abandoning senior citizens or not needing their input. The existing process wasn't working well, and there's another avenue to channel that input back into the city without having a standalone advisory.
This was a recommendation from the commission itself. They want to have coffee and talk about things instead of a formal meeting and a liaison to the Parks and Commission. So
Madam Mayor, move second reading and adoption of ordinance 4925.
Second.
motion and second to conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4925 dissolving the Senior Citizen Advisory Commission. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment? Roll call, please.
Elliot,
Yes.
Goodlow,
Yes.
David Miller. Oh, he's not here. Monica Miller,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Lowquist.
Yes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to dissolution of the Senior Citizen Advisory Commission and repealing chapter 1.48 entitled Senior Citizen Advisory Commission of the Ellensburg City Code.
Thank you. Okay, item 9B, first reading of ordinance 4927, creation of the Left One Disability Board. So
Man in the captain's chair.
What?
Man in the captain's chair.
I know.
But I have.
He's gonna have to take minutes, I guess. Mayor and Council, Beth Leader, City Clerk, and I'm here to present the ordinance for creation of the Left One Disability Board for the City of Ellensburg. Per RCW 4126.110, the city, because they are over 20,000 in population, is required to create a disability board for Left One members and retirees. The county has currently been processing claims for Left One members and retirees for the city of Ellensburg, and they forward those to myself for processing and reimbursement. I attended the September 27th meeting to answer questions and give them an update of the process that the city is going through to create the disability board. I also attended a meeting in Wenatchee in May for the Washington State Left Education Association Conference and got some information regarding what the city can and cannot do for Left One Disability Board creation and the advisory committee. So presenting to you the ordinance for creation for first reading. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. I did speak with the mayor earlier today regarding the membership requirement in the ordinance. I spoke with the city attorney about that, and we can put some language in there for second reading, which require or which follows the RCW. If there are no Left One members or Left One retirees, I guess I should say, available to serve on the board, then there's other options per the RCW that we can have members serve on the disability board. So that can be added to. Councilmember Elliott.
We're sitting less than 10, right? Total.
Yeah, it's around there.
Yeah, the pool is shrinking and they don't all live in Ellensburg.
Yeah, and it's like the fire relief and pension board. There's a minimal amount there too. That'll be another board I need to find a member for.
And just so the place that's referring to is B2, where it outlines the membership. And I guess my thinking was if we just refer to the RCW, if they change the RCW, we can, it's just there. We don't have to amend. And I know that the Left One members are concerned about Left Two members serving on the board and
It's already happened. Different context.
So so I think that'll be cleaner. But we can go ahead with this for tonight's meeting. Is there any further questions? Is there a motion? A public comment? Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak regarding the Left One Disability Board?
Madam Mayor, move first reading of ordinance 4927.
Motion and second for ordinance 4927. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I too vote aye, opposed. Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, relating to creation of a city disability board for left Plan 1 retirement system members with jurisdiction over police officers and firefighters of the City of Ellensburg pursuant to RCW 41.26.110 and adding a new chapter 1.90 left 1 disability board to the Ellensburg City Code.
Thank you. Next item is updating the council rules and procedures to remove the requirement to provide an address for public comment.
Hello, everyone. Nicole Klaus, staff to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. I'm here tonight to talk about the DEI Commission's request to remove the requirement to provide your address during public comment. At our most recent meeting in September, the commission approved forwarding this memo to you. They reviewed the issue from a safety and inclusion lens and determined that some members of the public may not feel safe in providing their address during public comment, especially if it's on a controversial issue, and requiring that address could be a barrier to participation. As council rules are adopted by resolution, we would need to have a resolution brought before you at a future meeting. The commission did not consider cases where, like public hearings where addresses may legally be required. So if you all direct us to move forward with producing a resolution, we work with the city attorney to make sure that language is in there where needed. So at this time, just open to council discussion for direction on if we should move forward with this or not, or what questions we need to give to commission.
Rich?
My only concern, and this might go across poorly to some people, but I care if you're a resident or not. I don't care what your address is. But there are some issues in which I value somebody who lives inside the city of Ellensburg's opinion differently than somebody who does not live inside the city of Ellensburg. And so if there's a way to state you're a resident or not, or that all address is voluntary, but I do want to know if you're a resident.
I think there's a way to do that without providing an exact address.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. It's very well said.
Is there any further questions? Is there any public comment on this issue? I just, a comment, I recall during the height of COVID, some people were requesting not to provide their address, and we made them, and that was uncomfortable, because we don't use that address for anything other than to know whether,
Or to notify them.
and
at the end of the
to notify
decision.
them potentially communication if that's needed. And I think that's only really needed in the public hearing setting. So, and not the legislative kind, right?
Well, there, such as, I mean, there are, I wouldn't want to parse it to just quasi judicial. Tonight, for instance, if there's a comp plan amendment approved, that's appealable by anyone who would care to speak at that. So I wouldn't want to limit it.
Okay. So is there
Consensus is bring us back something that I'd like to have. I mean, addresses can be voluntary unless they're required, and resident status, city or non-city resident status is important.
And just could I ask for clarification, Nicole? This proposal would only apply to the DEI commission, not all.
But
city
no, they're
boards?
recommending it for all
All
city
city.
meetings, including city council
Okay,
meetings.
thank you for the clarification. I just want to make sure.
So the commissions and boards follow the council rules. So if it was changed in the council rules, then we would roll that out to the commissions and boards as well.
I can comment that the suggestions that have been made do not violate the spirit of the recommendation that's coming to you.
Can I just, I want to make sure I heard clearly that that the referral back to staff is to amend the rules to eliminate the requirement for an address, but make it voluntary if people want to provide it, and also that they should provide their residency. Is it only as to the city or the city and county or either, or I just want to make
City.
sure what I bring back to you is what you want.
City, for me, that's what I represent people who live here.
You know, I would like to know whether they're Kittitas County or Massachusetts. I mean, yeah, yes.
So city, county or otherwise.
Yeah.
About that.
I mean, we don't get that very often, but
Well, we hear from developers and that to me, you know, a developer from Bothell is different than a homeowner here.
yeah. So, okay,
Thank you.
clear enough?
Yeah.
Thank you. We are at the manager's report.
You just call for the manager's report.
I did.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, Terry Weiner, Acting City Manager. The first item I have for you is involves the Washington State Auditor's Office. Just shortly after the pandemic, they began offering cybersecurity audits. And this is a free service they provide to basically do a top to bottom to top review of our cybersecurity infrastructure and policies. We sort of declined that for the past few years until we had our IT department more fully staffed. And of course, this year it became a full department. We now have a department manager. So the timing is right. And I think they're going to begin that audit actually, I believe next week, and it will take several months to go through that. And as stated at the end of that audit, the report will be brought back to the city manager, the directors and city council for presentation. The second item I have is previously scheduled for tonight, was supposed to be a surplus hearing involving Bureau of Reclamation project. That's the Shockey Habitat project that's been in process for many years. That had to be rescheduled for a variety of reasons. And so that is now set for the October 16th meeting. So I just wanted to advise you of the change and the reason for that change. The third item we have is, as has been reported, KitCom is undergoing some managerial changes with the director leaving by the end of the year. Councilmember Elliott is going to be involved in helping to transition them until the new director is selected. They'll be going through a selection process. Hopefully get someone hired before the end of the year, but that's not by any means certain. Councilmember Elliott also sits on the KitCom board, so he's requesting that during the time where he's actually doing service to the agency that another council member take his position on the board. Those meetings are the second Thursday of each month at 1:30 p.m.
Is anyone interested and can they cover it?
As a member of the Law and Justice Committee, I feel like that would be a perfect fit for me. I'd like to nominate myself for that.
Great, if you're available.
Second.
So do we need a motion in a second?
No.
Okay, we're appointing Adam.
He held his hand up, so I think
Yes.
that is good enough.
No,
Great.
but not volunteer.
Volunteer, it's like.
There are two other items that aren't on the report. The first is you have, I think on the dais before you, a letter of support for the mayor's signature for the Clay Elum Ridge Large Landscape Project. This letter would go to the acting regional forester for the U.S. Forest Service Region 6. And we're seeking your agreement that the mayor can sign that on behalf of the city.
Following-
Authorize the mayor's signature.
Second. Motion and second to authorize the mayor's signature on a letter of support for Clay Elum Ridge Large Landscape Project. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And two vote aye opposed. Motion carries.
And then the second letter of support you have is from the Valley Play Museum. They are intending to apply for, there's currently an RFP out from the county's 0.1% mental health tax commission. And the Valley Play Museum is seeking the city's support, seeking a letter of support from the city for their application for their museum, their proposal to establish a children's interactive play museum to improve the health and wellness of children and families in Kittitas County.
Wait for a motion.
Is there? This was a request.
I will,
Have to do it.
well, I would, it's a project that is also appeared in our council funded grants, like with Councilmember Goodlow and Wynn and I have been reviewing. We're familiar that there was going to be a request for an outside grant. It doesn't affect our decision, I don't think, on the subcommittee. So I would make a move to authorize the mayor to sign the letter of support for the Play Museum. Occasion.
I would second.
Motion and second to authorize the mayor to sign the letter of support for the Play Museum for the mental health funds.
You have a question as well. The proposal that we received for the grants, do we know if this particular funds is what they were looking at in their proposal, or was that that's completely separate? Okay.
They didn't specify, but it was, and I don't know that they're,
Because this was the one that we had
I
some concerns with.
think they were,
Yeah.
my impression was they have a very large grant that they're going to request, but and then they're looking at other grant funding opportunities. So I would assume that's one of the.
that was my understanding. They didn't specify, but I don't think I'm not familiar with the amount of money available in this particular fund, but I don't think it's large enough to cover what they were looking for. So I guess they have multiple applications.
Rich?
So I worked on getting the 1/10 of 1% passed for 18 months fairly intensely. This doesn't feel like a direct fit, and maybe the selection process will weed that out, but I'm leery about putting the city council's name on something that it feels like an indirect fit at best. The RCW is very specific about what the money's supposed to be used for. And this feels like a stretch. It doesn't mean it's not a worthy project. It just doesn't feel eligible for the specific 1/10 of 1% tax that we just passed.
And
So I'm not gonna vote for it.
I would say, I love the idea of the Children's Museum. I missed the one that was here, that closed with pretty much right after I needed it. But I don't feel like I have enough information about the organization or the plan to endorse it right now.
I have the same opinion. But my my feeling was this was something that will be sorted out at the application period, but I would be okay with if council didn't feel comfortable with moving it forward, despite the fact I made the motion.
Do you want to withdraw the motion or should we vote?
Let me withdraw the motion. Somebody else can make them, if they choose.
We don't have to do anything if we.
I will
choose.
withdraw the motion then.
Yeah, and I appreciate Councilmember Elliott's comments, because he knows more about that funding than probably any of us do. And, I thought he had some good points to make.
Yes. And that's all I have this evening on the manager's report.
Okay. Thank you. So motion is withdrawn and there's no action on that item. Councilmember Elliott, what have you been up to?
Kickoff. No, we had a 150 acre fire advantage today, so please, everybody still be careful.
We're not, the rain didn't help too much.
It didn't rain over there. It rained, you know.
Okay.
It was just windy.
Councilmember Goodlow.
A couple of things. I met and several members of the planning committee from the DEI commission met with CW regarding the next World Cafe event. And it looks like that's going to be postponed till January. So I'll have more later. Council of Governments met last week and we heard an interesting presentation on brownfields and grants and sources of revenue to address some of the brownfield issues in the Upper County. The UAC meeting for August was canceled and the County Homeless Affordable Housing Committee met today and approved a request from the Ministerial Association to fund the cold-weather shelter for this year.
Oh, good. So that's open mid.
October to
Yeah,
the mid.
and not till November.
Oh.
Yeah.
They were shooting for, okay.
October.
Yeah, they normally don't open until, because they have to get it staffed up in there and some resources purchased.
the information that we saw in the grant proposal was they would be opening in October.
Okay, I thought it was that they were gonna, they needed to get this through because they needed to get the resources in place
Okay.
starting this
be.
month.
It could be.
But it will open when it is
will
ready.
open.
Yeah, they usually wait for the temperature to drop as well.
Councilmember Miller.
It's been a busy couple of weeks. The dates have sort of blurred, so don't hold me accountable on the dates, but let's see, since our last meeting, Councilmember Monica Miller and I staffed one of the coffees with the council over at the Early Bird. And it was well covered, I think, by the Daily Record. So thank the Daily Record for their coverage, but I see a lot of familiar faces. We met many of the same folks at our meeting. And the topic of interest was Reed Park and the Legion and the fire lane and the parking issues that were raised tonight. It was really good. I mean, I appreciated people taking time, and I think most of the people that came stayed the entire 2 hours. So good conversation. And then Councilmember Goodlow and I met to go through the council funded grant applications, and Councilmember Wynn and I met previously. Councilmember Goodlow couldn't join us. So between the three of us, I think we've got it covered, and there's recommendations coming forward on that. And then I, as the chair of the Transit Advisory Committee, representing the city council, I requested through our transit manager a meeting to discuss central transit finances as it relates to our capital needs going forward and some of our programs. And I'm not exactly sure, but it turned out to be an all hands on deck meeting, and I appreciate the staff interest. It was transit manager, city finance director, city public works director, and city manager, and another representative from finance. So we talked all around the whole city's financial structure for the transit program, both operating capital and specifically looking at the fact that in 2026 we'll be needing to evaluate, council will need to be evaluating the currently supported sales tax that goes towards transit. So I know the PTAC has been talking over the last several months, wanting to make sure we get out in front of that and have a good understanding, because we're dependent right now and expect in the future to be dependent on both community support through sales tax, but also the Washington DOT grants, but neither of which are guaranteed. So it creates kind of a unique funding challenge. And then last week, I attended an invitation over at Open Table with Councilmember Goodwin was also there. We were invited to come in and talk to folks and kind of get a feel for what they have been doing for about a year at Open Table, which for most people probably know, but essentially they have a lunch that's open to the public. Anyone who needs to get a meal can get a meal. If you have the means to pay for it, they encourage that. There will be some more discussions coming out of that because, as we all know, the demands for services like that greatly exceed the resources. So Fish has been basically covering that cost, but it's getting to be an increasing challenge. So there's some ongoing conversations that we expect to be having, bringing to the council in one form or another. And Councilmember Goodlow can elaborate better than I, but it's on our radar again, never really went away. But I would just point out that Fish really did step up a year ago when it became apparent that the meal service that they were providing was limited to seniors, and then the support of the cold weather shelter. And there were people in the community who were not able, either in those two groups, who were unable to have access to a hot meal. And without any support from the city, the Fish folks went ahead and took that on. And so they should be commended for that, I think. So more to come. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Monica Miller.
Aside from coffee with council, I didn't have any commission activities.
I had the Law and Justice Committee meeting, and then I believe that was it. I would like to ask staff to bring back at least a cost analysis, what Natasha was talking about with the swim facility. My daughter's currently go there regularly, and it is a big concern of mine as well. So if I could at least get some sort of a idea of what it would cost to be able to do those, so we can move forward with something for public safety.
And maybe more broadly, the issues around the state law and what the opportunities are at the bathroom, at the shower
Yeah,
facilities, at the pool.
I don't, and I'm sure Terry could advise better. I don't think that it would be breaking that law to install
Right.
cubes within the restroom facilities, which I don't feel is unreasonable to do.
I agree.
So I had the Yakima Basin Fish and Wildlife Recovery Board meeting there. The state has accepted our recommendations for $2.1 million in grants for a variety of projects in the Yakima Basin. I attended the Kittitas County Economic Development Strategic Plan Implementation Workshop, and the theme was going farther together, kind of thing. Just a lot of talk about partnerships. Attended the Kittitas County Board of Commissioners Town Hall here in Ellensburg, themes of affordable housing and mental health. And yeah, that RFP for the mental health services closes on October 18. The county manager position is they had been talking about is on hold. They want to look at some things on their management team and then wait for the 2025 elections. So whoever is just to make sure whoever gets elected is on board with any changes that they might make before they make them. But it's every 2 years and there's a change. So I don't know. Anyway, but they are talking about a budget that's 30% less than, which is significant. I attended an audit exit interview and we had a very clean report, and the state auditor had high praise for our staff here at the city, especially Holly Conti. And I attended the Bite of the Berg. Central Transit was there with the police department, parks, human resources. I tried the drunk goggles to walk to the, they could not walk the straight line. Let's see. And thanks to Beth for coming to the left board. And just one more thing on that, we're going to try to maybe not have joint meetings, but at least back-to-back meetings in the same place, because it is the same people who are going to be doing both the county and the city's claims. And just a reminder, so the Reed Park webpage has been updated, but it does not yet have the latest version E&D that was the city's effort to respond to the concerns of the American Legion in March. And I met with Angie Lang and had a nice visit. So with that, unless there's anything else, we are adjourned.